So we will move on if everyone agrees. We will now hear Joanne. Joanne has experienced her nursing work over 35 years across the life course from point of care to the population health. Joanne's particular interest is how person-centeredness aligns with our professional identity, and she's currently exploring this with colleagues in USA and UK. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you so much. Let's try this again. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? So, thank you. So I'm here as two people. I'm here as Joanne. Hello, my name is Joanne, and I'm a registered nurse. But I'm also the Chief Executive at the Foundation of Nursing Studies. And for those of you online that know us, that's great because you've known us for a long time. And those of you that don't know us, you will, hopefully soon, because by being members of the ICoP Community Interest Company, it couldn't have come at a better time for us. We're really, really excited about what the future holds. And as a growing, I suppose we are a social enterprise, really, but certainly a charity, being with you on this journey and sharing some of our learning and learning from you as well will just be so rich over the coming years. So our charity purpose is quite broad. We were set up in about 1987, maybe a few years before that. There was a group of nurses and doctors actually in North London who felt that they wanted to give back. It was a private hospital at the time. They wanted to give back to the community, and they felt that there was an inequity around education and training and development and research, really, understanding of research. And so they wanted to create a network, which they then penned, I suppose, called the Foundation of Nursing Studies. And then over the years, it became a registered charity. We are also a limited company by guarantee. And that was not too far away from 1987. So now we've grown. We've got a board of trustees, and our chair is Professor Jo Pritchard, who is a superb civil society leader. She's a nurse and will be leading us into the next phase of our growth as a charity. She joined us towards the end of 2023. We do have a PDF on our website, why work with funds, and there's a QR code at the bottom. And I have to tell you that developing this was not easy, because being a collaborative organisation and being in a very co-creative relationship as a team with practice development facilitators and now person-centred practice facilitators, same people. It's quite difficult to get everything that we do onto one page. But I said we have to do it, because how can I go and see the policymakers, the strategy makers, the commissioners, the finance directors, whoever it is that I need to talk to without having something to give them. I can't sit there for 3 hours and talk to them about the ins and outs of what we do. It's just not, pragmatic in this day and age. And it was really hard, I felt as if I forced it out of us, really. But we did reach consensus, and we have got it. So please do have a look. I'd be delighted for you to feedback to us as well. So journey, well, oh my gosh, this is just crazy, crazy, crazy. I joined in 2019, and the journey into being much more overt to the world about the ways that we work at FONS was really, really important. We had a really dreadful time during the pandemic. I had to stay on, and all my team had to be furloughed, and it was absolutely horrendous. Really, really, really tough. And I spent all my life online. I was on Teams. I ended up being really nocturnal because I was trying to form relationships with colleagues in America and all over the place. And so it was really hard. And when we came back together, when we were allowed out again and we came back together, we had a couple of days team time away day that was facilitated, external facilitation, and it was really tough. And we knew that our core being had been disrupted so much, and we were angry, and I was very angry and frustrated. And we were probably feeling quite discombobulated really as a team. So we had this amazing couple of days, which then resulted in, I mean, it was a long piece of work. It went on for quite a while of co-creation, but we then established our, what we called at the time, building on success strategy. Now, this is not a strategy in the common, sense of the word. This is not an operational business plan with finances and targets. This is our way of working. And I don't know anybody in any other charity. I mean, I'd be great, Claire, for your input onto this from the Q&I Scotland's perspective, because I have learned so much from you over the years, I can't tell you. But I don't know any other charities, maybe apart from the two of us, that really lay it down like this in an external way. Because when people want to work with funds, they'll say, well, let's work with funds, but do they really know what they're getting for their money? And I think sometimes we have to say, well, no, as well as yes. So I would much rather up front people know who we are and what we believe in and what our values are before they even pick up the phone. And that's what this is about. And I have this on my desktop. I refer back to it all the time. This is my Bible. This is my one-page reason for us existing as an organisation, which is extremely powerful. I won't read the rest of the slide because you can see that and you can look at the slides afterwards. And for the ones that don't know us very well or haven't met us before, we are an education and development organisation, and we practice what we preach, we walk the walk. And so we are all registered nurses, mental health, learning disability, adult, 2 of us are health visitors. So we've got a real myriad of experiences and lived experiences, both within our lives as people, but also as nurses. And our programmes are quite varied, actually. We've built over the years programmes, so we'll have long programmes. So the Improving Practice programmes, which is the fellowship, our Inspire Improvement Fellowship, which has been funded by the Bidette Trust for Nursing for a few years. We had our Teaching Learning Care Homes programme, and the list goes on. But over the years, because Dr. Kate Sanders has been with FONS for 20 years, her organisational memory is so crucial for us and for me, because I'm asking questions every 5 minutes still, 4.5 years in. I still ask questions all the time. But with Kate then experiencing that amazing doctoral journey that resulted in her PhD was just wonderful for us. And now Kate's in her postdoc phase, working very closely with Sean and with colleagues online around the Guiding Lights work, and then bringing her own PhD around muchness into the organisation. We're spending more and more time now thinking about muchness, what it means to us, what does wellbeing mean to us as an organisation. So being able to kind of be in this space for us is just fantastic. And it feels to me like I'm on holiday, not in a, just because I'm so free to think, and I think as part of my job, and I don't feel guilty for thinking. And so I'm modelling that thinking, and we don't apologise for thinking. I mean, I could just spend all day talking about that, to be frank. So how do we evaluate? This was really tough for me. How on earth do we evaluate all of this stuff that's a little bit difficult to explain and articulate? I still find it really difficult to articulate. How do we evaluate it? Well, we evaluate it the same as you evaluate it. But unfortunately, the people that we work with have no idea how we evaluate. And well, sorry, that's not true. They do, but they don't understand what participatory evaluation means. They don't understand why we would evaluate right from the beginning till right to the end, and some. So I've had to kind of put myself in both camps. I was that person that came in and said, what on earth is 4th and 5th generation evaluation? I don't know what you're talking about. And actually I had to experience it. And so I attended our week-long residential program about a month after I started, which I'm still reflecting on 4 years later. And it blew my mind completely. But now I understand what participatory evaluation is. And so I think one of my questions to us as a group and to us as a global collective is how do we get this into the mindset of the people that we're trying to influence and trying to work with, certainly throughout education, academia, our nursing program, our validated programs. How do we get this in and make sure that it's in and it's taught properly? How do we do that? So my next kind of phase of this session with you is really looking at influence, because FONS is not a lobbying organisation. In our charity purposes at the top, it doesn't say that we will lobby. It doesn't say overtly that we influence policy by lobbying. We're not party political, and that's very, very important. So for a long time, FONS prided itself by being everybody's friend. We were everybody's friend. So we were in the middle of lots and lots of communities of practice and lots of theoretical underpinnings, and it's been phenomenal. But actually recently, we're now starting to put our line in the sand about who we are and what we believe in and what theoretical underpinnings drive us. So how do we get that across? How do I, as a chief executive, get this across to people that I know won't get it because I was in the same camp as them for a long time? How do we do that? And how do we do it? Whereas, and I apologise, this is an England-centric slide, but you get what I mean. We've got the long-term workforce plan. Okay, we've got the King's Fund in the UK, which is a policy, a think tank. We've got the Health Foundation. Both of those organisations, plus the Nuffield Trust, are very, very, very strong think tanks. And both of those organisations talk about nursing and midwifery. Now, I happen to be a tenant of the King's Fund, so I'm in their cafe every week. I have made it my business to get to know the King's Fund, to get to know what makes them tick, and to offer up our expertise, knowledge, experience, and evidence to their work. And it's taken about 4.5 years for me to get into the door and to meet the chief executive. And that's not been easy. And, you know, people may say, well, what you know, why are you doing that? Why aren't you focusing on being a chief executive of your organisation? Why aren't you leading the organisation? And my answer to that is that we cannot survive. FONS will never survive if I do not bridge that gap between the micro, the meso, and the macro. We will not survive. We are in a highly politicised environment. Money's tight, workforce is dwindling, and in fact, in some areas, it's hemorrhaging. And so we have to get into the politics of health and care, not party politics is maybe for another conversation. So how do I use my voice then? So as the chief executive, and I have to tell you that for a long time, I couldn't really say that without squirming in my seat or being apologetic or screwing my face up. I could not. I didn't know what it meant to be a chief executive. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to be. I felt a massive sense of responsibility. But actually, over the years, my team, as Tanya said earlier on, high challenge, high support. I am now very confident in my skin and very confident in my role as a registered nurse, as a nurse leader, and as a civil society servant leader, and as an experienced nurse. And so I will now put my head above the parapet and write. And so our relationship with our journals has been extremely important, especially now that we've had to pause the International Practice Development Journal for lots and lots of different reasons, and that was devastating to me. Actually, I didn't realise just how much I relied on that journal for my own learning, and so I do feel that our writing for wider publication, as I said earlier on, in a more, not layman's terms, but trying not to be so academic that it switches people off. So I do try my best to kind of bridge that gap. So these are just some of the articles that I've been involved with, and I've also been, over 10 years, I've been working working up, I suppose, my knowledge and understanding of nurse coaching, because coaching methodologies, we know, is very, very useful within person-centered practice, but nurse coaches in the US and part of the international nurse coaching associations are they kind of live and breathe person-centered practice for me. And so I'm still in the process of trying to find out a bit more about it. And so I was asked to contribute to a webinar a few weeks ago, which is on the Facebook page for this organisation. So on the next slide you can see, it's not a very good photograph of me. It's usually what I look like when I'm on a webinar, screwing my face up. But you can go onto the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy and watch that, because I really, really feel that for me, in my journey into person-centered nurse, is that it's been there all along. I thought I knew what person-centered practice was. My mother was a Rogerian counsellor, so I understood about that from a Rogerian perspective. And I suppose my ENB 998, my mentoring and assessing programme way back in '96, was around the Rogerian model at the time. But actually, my professional identity is as wrapped up in person-centeredness as it is intrinsically linked. And so I'm trying to kind of get out there and talk more about my understandings and my journey into understanding my professional identity, and that's been a huge thank you really to Sigma Theta Tau, because they have a whole group of nurse academics that hopefully I'm meeting one of them next week in DC. We're going to a Creating Healthy Workplace Environments conference, and I'm presenting next week, and hopefully she's going to meet me there. And if that's the case, I can't wait, because I need to talk about it more, and I need to understand it more. So yeah, any comments or any challenges back to me, or if you want to have a session on this after today, I would really love to sit down with you and try and figure out why I feel so strongly around my professional identity as well as person-centered practice. Talking about putting yourself out of your comfort zone, I have never written an academic editorial. I probably ran away from this kind of writing because I remember from my master's degree that my dissertation was so I embodied it so much that I couldn't see the wood for the trees by the end of my dissertation, and I had enough literature for a PhD, and it was horrendous. And so I just didn't do it. So I was supported by one of my trustees, Anne McMahon, who is co-editor of the Journal of Research in Nursing with Andre, and they supported me to write my first editorial, which again was like War and Peace, before they supported me in a high challenge, high support manner over many weeks to cut it down. I was still above the word limit, but they let me off. And that was the most proud I've ever been in my life. I'm still so proud of that editorial, and I've just been asked this week if I will revisit that for a special issue of a European society. So I might do that. So that's amazing, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So just kind of the last bit of this kind of last 10 minutes really is around, well, 5 minutes, if you tell me. It's just about how I've influenced. So I am a political being. I am a political manoeuvrer. I've been in politics for a long time. Didn't really realise at the time, but now I do. So coming out of it and now looking in, I'm able to influence the people because I was inside with those people for so long. So I've kind of reorientated my thinking into a very independent person within an independent organisation. And so I've re-established these amazing relationships, taken a long time, but now we've got a position. I've positioned funds into the more macro space. I've positioned myself into a more macro space, but with the realism that there isn't a lot of money. And so we've been able to establish some programs, so the Learning Disability Nursing Leadership Program, but as you can see, the red bit at the bottom, there's a risk because the money's running out. And so this time of our lives as a collective, as a CIC, is going to be globally more important than ever, because we've got to, whatever we do, we have to do probably within existing resources.
Joanne, could I ask you just to tie up in another minute or two, because you've said a lot and I'm sure people would love to respond.
Sure. Okay. And they'll get the slides, won't they, Tanya?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So, all right. So I'll wrap up just by kind of finishing off talking a little bit about our reflective practice. So we've been working on resilience-based clinical supervision, and we know that this is really important for our student nurses and our preceptor level, our early career nurses. And actually what I'm hoping is that this program is going to enable people to start to understand what person-centered practice is, what reflective practice is, and it might be a way in to person-centered practice as we move on. And let me just hang on a sec. Sorry, it's my iPad. And also now, really importantly, because Tanya is, the only face I can see on here is Tanya's, and I'm chuffed actually. So the work that we're doing at the moment in the Foundation Nursing Studies is through Tanya and through our England Chief Nursing Officers team. We've managed through Charlotte McArdle and Tanya and others to get person-centered practice as a pillar, one of the 5 pillars of our Chief Nursing Officer strategy. So that's going to be an absolute joy to progress into a kind of policy phase, which you can see here. We had a workshop, and the five components of that vision is in a slide on the bottom. It's yet to be published because there are issues in government around funding, but as a principle, we're in it and we're driving that. So please do watch this space. So thank you. You can put my slides down. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanne, for a nice presentation. So
Pleasure.
we have 2 minutes. If anyone wants to do a question or any comments, please come forward. Yeah.
I always try to hold back, but
do you want to take the slides are still up for me. Yeah. Is that just me?
Shima, can we put the slides down for a little minute? So I always try to hold back to see if anybody else is ready to, but I suppose I just want to pick up a couple of comments, Joanne. One of the things you said is, you know, how do we get people to that stage where they kind of get it? And I mean, I had a lovely conversation with one of my colleagues actually in England, Gemma Stacey, and I hadn't actually thought about it like this before, but she said, and she's right, it's a threshold concept. So once you get it, you can't unget it.
Yeah.
Once you're there, but it's how we get people to that stage where they suddenly go, oh my goodness, that's what it's all about. So I feel your pain. There is a journey around that. But I think one of the elements that feeds into that journey to realize, oh, this actually is really powerful, is Brendan and I get challenged, and I've been challenged by even my own students in the classroom. Why are we using McCormick and McCann's framework? Why are we not using anything else? And we've had that challenge quite a lot along the way. So actually what I am in the process of doing is I'm doing a systematic, I'm going to do a scoping review to see what other, actually really systematic look at the evidence base and see what other kind of other frameworks are out there so we can respond to that maybe more eloquently. I said before, our show's not the only show in town, but whenever you start diluting efforts, when you say, oh, well, that's, you know, we don't care if there's another framework out there that does something similar, I'm right at the front of the queue, but I think that is also a challenge to getting people to engage in this, all of what we're talking about, to get them to that threshold. It's all of that.
But can I just, and I'd love to respond to that just very briefly, and I will put the link to this paper in the chat. But I happened upon a integrative review by Amy Louise Byrne, Adele Baldwin, and Claire Harvey from Queensland around, it just said, whose centre is it anyway, defining person-centred care in nursing. And it's a really, really interesting read for me now, knowing what I know. And I'm starting to write all over it by page 2. Now, McCants and McCormack are in it once. And it's more of it, but it's great because it talks about micro, meso, macro, and it talks also about patient-centered and, you know, all of that. But it looks at the healthcare system, and that an organisation is not allowed to accredit themselves to this, whatever it is, without demonstrating how they do person-centered care. So, oh, I just want to talk to them. So I think so actually, but they're calling for more work, and so everybody's on the same page. They reviewed what they reviewed, and they've got their own personal viewpoints, as have we all, and so we're all calling really for the same thing ultimately. So maybe we need to invite them into the ICoP. I shall email them. I'm sure they'll be delighted.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to say something?
Yes, please. Firstly, Joanne, it's nice to make your acquaintance, and I love the passion in the way you speak and what you're doing. Obviously, when you've mentioned reflective supervision as a project, it's something dear to my heart, reinforced by Neil Cook's comment this morning about undergraduates hated it, because the reason they hate it, it's because nurse teachers generally prescribe it as a very functional approach to learning, with another learning technique bolted on to the existing curriculum, rather than reframing the curriculum around what I would call guided reflection rather than reflective supervision, just to get away from that word supervision as a fairly normative term that's,
I agree,
I find generally unhelpful. But I'm taking up hopefully an honorary professorship at Exeter University in April. I've been sort of nominated, and one of my agenda items is integrating guided reflection into an undergraduate curriculum. So I'd love to sort of consider working with you on that at some stage if you're interested.
The answer's yes from me.
That's all I'm going to say right now. So, but anyway, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Chris.